Trump announced that he would be biting secondary tariffs on Russia if a deal to end the war in Ukraine is not reached in 50 days. Donald Trump also announced that the United States would be providing Ukraine weaponry, which European states would be paying for. We can go across to France 24's Fraser Jackson standing by at the White House. Fraser, is the U.S. president still keeping the door open to diplomacy, or is he shutting it?
Well, it appears that Vladimir Putin still has time to talk to Donald Trump and that he wants this 50-day period to give the Russians some time to come back to the negotiating table and get this ceasefire deal across the line. Now, it was very evident in those remarks that Donald Trump is very annoyed at Vladimir Putin. In private, we're told that he's been railing against him for quite some time. But Donald Trump openly saying that he was very disappointed in Vladimir Putin numerous times. He said, "I've been hearing so much talk, but it's all talk. I felt that we had a deal about 4 times, and here we are still talking about it." He even at one point relayed that a conversation he'd had with Melania where he'd spoken to Vladimir Putin and said that, Melania, I've just had a great conversation with Vladimir, and then the missiles start falling, and then he feels kind of, double-crossed by that. So a significant kind of movement here, at least in the rhetoric from Donald Trump about Vladimir Putin, and also a significant move towards some tariffing that we're seeing as well. A 50-day ceasefire window now, really, to get this ceasefire deal across the line. And if it doesn't happen, then secondary tariffs of 100%. It should be noted that is significantly less than the 500% that some of the people in Congress are currently calling for. Donald Trump said that 500% number was meaningless at a certain point. So I think there will be some people on Capitol Hill who are thankful about this, but also feeling that this doesn't go as far as they would have liked this to have gone when it comes to tariffs on Russia.
Stay with us, Fraser, because I'd like to bring in our international affairs editor, Angela Diffley. Angela, we heard there from Mark Rutte really laying it on thick for the U.S. President Donald Trump, following from that NATO summit, which we saw where he called him daddy. I was curious, how will European states react to this move from the U.S. president to provide Ukraine the defensive weaponry it needs, but send them the bill?
Yeah, the Rutte-Trump dynamic is extraordinary.
I wish I could call it a bromance. It's something on a different level.
It's extraordinary. And it is a little cringe-inducing. But that said, it does seem to be really effective. He knows exactly what he's doing. And it does seem to have some sort of impact. As to whether Europe will be happy with paying for this, Europe, this is not a surprise. Emmanuel Macron will not be happy. He has always been pushing the idea that Europe must be more self-sufficient, strategic autonomy, and be boosting its own defence industry. The reality is that Europe doesn't have anything like an effective, strong enough defence industry itself. So that is a matter of fact. And Europe is fully aware of this. Friedrich Merz in Germany, I think, we're being told by Trump that he's very enthusiastic. Look, the Germans are pretty pragmatic about this. It wouldn't be a surprise either to Europe if Donald Trump decided in some way to link this buying of the very sophisticated weaponry to the 30% trade tariffs. Everything in the Trump world is linked, is negotiable, and it wouldn't at all surprise European leaders if that were to be something that happens further on the line, that there might be some compromise on the 30% because they are buying all this US weaponry. We'll see what turns up there. That said, he said a strong Europe is a good thing. That is new, although he has said things like that before. He does appear to have softened since that NATO meeting where he keeps talking about how he was impressed by the resilience of European countries, European leaders. He appears to have had a very, very negative impression of them from that first term.
Because they all agreed to his 5%.
Because he won the battle. It was his idea. He pushed it, and he won, and he likes the results, and now thinks they can do business. On the suggestion of, we were talking earlier about whether the United States might agree to provide more offensive weaponry to Ukraine, which might really change the dynamic of this war, and might really turn things around. there is the question there of what would be the rules controlling the use of US weaponry. So I think that in some ways it's not surprised that we didn't hear anything on that. On the tariffs, as Fraser was saying, it was rather vague. And, my instinct is that perhaps Trump was a bit reluctant.
The White House has actually clarified, saying Trump means he will impose 100% tariffs on Russia, secondary tariffs on other countries that buy oil from Russia if a deal isn't struck in 50 days. So that was the clarification coming from the White House. Fraser, I'd just like to bring you in. I'm just curious, how is Trump's base likely to react to this move from the U.S. president to continue to supply weapons, defensive weaponry to Ukraine, given that the Europeans will be footing the bill?
I think it's also just important to clarify that that's secondary tariff about the people who buy oil and gas from Russia was also included in this Senate bill. That was what was being floated by Lindsey Graham and Senator Blumenthal as well. So that is something Donald Trump has basically taken and run with, albeit at a much lower level than what the Senate was originally proposing. When it comes to Donald Trump's base, of course, they have long argued that they want this America First policy. They don't want to get entangled in forever wars. They don't want any more money going to Ukraine. And I think that is why Donald Trump now is trying to basically thread that needle between supporting the Europeans and also giving the base what they wanted. Now, I think that there would be many people up in arms if they found out that the Americans were going to be donating these Patriot systems to the Europeans. Donald Trump will be using this to sell it as his base as a victory, saying, look, we've got the Europeans to buy this from us. They've spent billions of dollars with us now. Remember, each Patriot system is around $1 billion, and it's not clear at the moment how many of these systems that the Europeans will be buying from the US, but it's likely to be more than one. So Donald Trump will be trying to spin that as a victory to his base to say, look, we've managed to get money for our own defense industrial complex here in the United States. It's American jobs that are going to get paid by this, and it's money that is going into our coffers from the Europeans. So Donald Trump will be spinning that. One person who's already not buying it, though, if you look online, is Marjorie Taylor Greene, the outspoken congresswoman from Georgia who has long been a supporter of Donald Trump, but has kind of fractured with him on various policy issues over the course of the last couple of months. She tweeted a few hours before this meeting happened saying housing and insurance across the board are extremely high and becoming out of reach for many young people in the middle class. We do not want to give or sell weapons to Ukraine to be involved in any foreign wars or continue the never-ending flow of foreign aid. We want to solve our own problems plaguing our own people, America first. And that is likely to be something that will get picked up upon by various parts of Donald Trump's base, who at the moment are going through it over the whole Jeffrey Epstein debacle that is currently engulfing the US and the MAGA movement. So it's a very interesting time for this to happen for Donald Trump and his base.
Fraser, thank you very much for that. Fraser Jackson reporting there from Washington. I'd like to thank Angela Diffley as well. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching.